But when you go into the development side, it's project based. So, you get your tasks, your projects, and you work through those. And it was a whole different culture. And I went from splitting my days as a stock trader. I used to split my days into 2-hour blocks just to get through the day. Like, okay, I'll make it 2 hours, and my day will hopefully be over, at the end of that. And I absolutely just hated it. I dreaded it. But once I switched over to the project development, my days would fly by. You get into that flow state, and your week's over, and out of nowhere, you've been at the company for a year, when a month as a stock trader felt like it took forever because you were just counting the hours down. So it was a big shift.
Welcome to another episode of the iOS Dev Podcast. In this episode, we had Taylor Covington join us. Taylor went from stock trader to a full stack developer and is also an indie developer currently working on MacroFlex. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. How did you shift from stock trader to development or software developer?
Yeah, it was a gradual transition. I have always been interested in business. And I was working as a stock trader at a large financial company, and I actually wanted to create my own business. I was thinking of all these side hustle ideas that I could do on the side to bring in some extra income. And I just in my career as a stockbroker, I was a little bored with it, where I was at. So I wanted to start my own t-shirt business. I thought it would be, kind of doing the print on demand type business. So I wanted to make my own website, but I hated using like the drag and drop WordPress type things at the time. And this was probably about 7 years ago. And so there were a few people that I worked with that started to get into coding, and they were talking about maybe going to a boot camp and stuff. So I kind of started tinkering with building my own print on demand website. And as a newbie, as you know, like, I mean, that's a big thing, right?
That sounds like a huge task to take on.
Yep. Yeah. So what was cool about that though is I find the best way to learn something is to have a project like that, because you have to kind of go through the little details and start solving those problems as you're learning. And it made me realize that I had a lot to learn. So that transition was pretty brutal at the time. But what I found was that I really liked learning development, and I liked to code, and it made me start thinking, wow, if I could learn to build things, I can build just about anything. And there's a lot of power in that, especially with the internet, the way that it is now, and apps. Having that power is huge. So I told my wife probably 3 months after I started kind of tinkering with it, I said, hey, I think I'm going to switch careers. I'm going to learn to code, and I'm just going to go for it. And she was super supportive of that, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So when you were trying to build that website, was there a moment where you're like, I can't do this, and like you knew you had to like find another resource or just like learn a lot more to get there?
Oh yeah. It was very quick when I thought, the websites that I'm building right now, with HTML, hello world, it was web browser. So it was all in JavaScript, and it was very soon. I was like, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time learning. And so my goal was to land a job as a developer, and to start just tacking on the experience, so I knew how to build things out. And that was big for me. Just just understanding that it's going to take time and that you're probably going to need a lot more help than you think you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar reasoning coming in. I didn't have like a business idea specifically, but I wanted to be able to build any idea that I did come to my mind at any time. At any time,
Mm-hmm.
and with development, you really can do that. Like whether it's an app or a website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so much fun too. Like just having that idea, and right when it sparks,
Yeah,
you're like, oh, okay, like I can build this thing out and put it in front of people and having them start use it. And once people start using your idea, it's super cool. Like there's no other feeling.
yeah. And you decided to take the boot camp route, right?
I did, yeah. I started learning. It was about 6 months when I made that decision. I told my wife that I was going to start learning. I bought a few Udemy courses and YouTube and um, started just learning myself for a while. Um, but I soon realized that when I got stuck, it was really hard to not have support and not know like what's the latest technology. I remember trying to decide between JavaScript and Python and Ruby, and there's just so many languages. Where do I start? Um, and at that time, I had no idea really the difference between the front end, the back end, um, and really where to start. So um, I decided that the best thing would be is to go to a boot camp, be people that can support and show me the direction. And I do think that was the best decision. And I actually I tried to decide if it was going to be going to college and doing like a 4 year degree or an 11-week part time boot camp. And I decided to go with the boot camp route. And best decision. I mean, I think even today I'd probably still be in college, learning
Damn.
something random and trying to
Yeah.
apply it. So yeah.
Yeah. And how did you land on like JavaScript and web development? Because I feel like that's when you decide you want to become a developer, that's the like one of the biggest obstacles because there's so many things you can go into. Like
Mm.
there's app, mobile, web. There's like even cybersecurity.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
how did you land on that?
Um, I had a friend that went through the boot camp route before I did, and he loved JavaScript, loved Node, and when I would ask him about what he would recommend, that's what he recommended. Um, and then I did a little bit more research, and I saw that it seemed like the trend was going a lot more towards JavaScript and React. And the cool thing too is that you can use both on front end and back end, um,
Yeah.
which was really nice because you learn one language, you can use it on front and back, um, and it makes the development process so much easier. So I actually went to the same boot camp that he went to, which was DevPoint Labs, and uh, it was React on the front end and Ruby on Rails on the back end. Um, so yeah, I think the biggest thing for me of choosing JavaScript was that it's it feels like and felt like at the time that was the direction that I felt like the web was going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think JavaScript is up there. I think it's number one, right?
I think it
Number
is
the
now. Yeah, I know Python was up there for a long time, but last I
Python
saw
might make a
JavaScript.
comeback with like all the machine learning and AI stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what advice would you have for people who are going into a boot camp?
Don't spend a lot of money on it, and don't expect to come out of it having a job. I think a boot camp is a great place to ask questions, build a network, build a portfolio, um, learn how to work with others is a big one. Working on projects, and it took me about 6 months, um, probably about 7 or 8 months actually to land my first full-time development job. My expectation when I came out was, hey, I have a certificate now. I'm good. I'm going to go land a job. Easy peasy. So,
Yeah.
and it was very soon after that I realized that it's not going to end up that way. So, um, yeah, I think the biggest thing is setting the expectation that afterward, put in the time, um, make sure that when you're building projects during the boot camp, that you build those with the mindset that those are going to be your projects that you're going to show employers after, and to put them on your own website, so that you can demo those if you ever need to, because that's going to be a huge selling point. And what really helped me was when I graduated from boot camp, um, uh, working with mentors. I had two mentors. One was more of a technical mentor. The other one was more of a soft skill mentor, that were both in the development field. Um, and they really helped with looking for different jobs, what interviewers are expecting, having some mock interviews, things like that. And it helped out a ton.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like we can forget because we're so focused on like coding and developing things. But if you're trying to land a job, the soft skills and like your portfolio is super
Mm-hmm.
huge.
Yeah, anyone that ever tells me or asks me what they should be focusing on to land their first development job, I always say two things. One is proof, and the other one is your network. And both of those things you can get out of boot camp. You're building your network with all of your colleagues, the mentors that they offer you, and you're also building your proof, your portfolio.
When you landed your first job, it was within the same company you're working at, right?
It was, yeah, yeah. With the financial company that I was at, I was able to get my foot in the door there.
Hmm.
I actually, so the team that I was on had an internal tool, and no one had updated it. The person that built the tool was learning to code, and just was tinkering with it and built it for the team, and they started to rely on it, and it needed updates. So um, my team knew that I was learning to code, and they wanted me to update some of it. So I just was tinkering with it, and I had a ton of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know if I can actually do this, but I'm going to try. And I ended up figuring it out, which was great. Um, but I used that as a transition into, I actually went into the cybersecurity team at that financial company. Um, and yeah, just kind of set up that way. So really looking for those opportunities within your company is huge.
Did you notice like a difference in culture when you shifted like groups
Oh,
from like more
absolutely.
financial and the tech?
Yeah, yeah. It was night and day. Even the lingo, um, what they were doing, and a big switch that I saw was when you go from. So for me, as a stock trader, I was taking inbound phone calls from people that are wanting to trade stocks, talk about their portfolios, retirement, um, and the the role was more, see, we need you to help as many people as you can in a day. So you need to take calls after call after call to fit in as many as you can. Um, but when you go into the development side, it's project based. So, you get your tasks, your projects, and you work through those. And it was a whole different culture. And I went from I went from splitting my days as a stock trader. I used to split my days into 2 hour blocks just to get through the day. Like, okay, I'll make it 2 hours, and my day will hopefully be over. you know, at the end of that. And I absolutely just hated it. I dreaded it. But once I switched over to the project development, um, my days would fly by. you get into that flow state, and you
Yeah.
know your week's over, and out of nowhere you've been at the company for a year, when a month as a stock trader felt like it took forever because you were just counting the hours down. So it was a big shift.
How was the cybersecurity role? Was that yeah, how was that compared to like, because when you think of web development, you don't really think of cybersecurity that much.
Yeah, it was. So I was actually the UX engineer. I was the only UX engineer front end on the cybersecurity team. Um, and the reason for that is because they were implementing uh, the like the different authentication systems. So my role was to create the login screen, sign up, password reset, um, and interesting enough, it was all in jQuery, which I know on Twitter there's a lot of hate in the web space of no one uses jQuery anymore. So I was very surprised to be using it. But the cybersecurity space is a whole new world. It's you know there's a lot of lingo that is very different from anything else that I've ever worked in, and very cool. I mean, I think what they do is really interesting with pen testing and just knowing how to keep things secure is really important. And I'm glad now that I'm making my own products. Knowing the authentication and the authorization side of it, and keeping users' data secure, uh, is so important. And being in that side of it and seeing it firsthand,
Yeah.
I think, especially young in careers, it's so important to get different pieces of software development, from cybersecurity like that, front end, back end. It's really good to get just pieces of everything.
Yeah, because because you get enough pieces and then you could build something on your own without.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And looking back at it now, what advice would you have to yourself when you were beginning to
Uh,
learn?
ask more questions. Don't. I wish that when I went in, I felt a pressure, I think, that I put on myself, that I needed to know what I was doing, and to prove that I knew what I was doing. And I think that helped me to level up quick, um, and to land different roles and jobs and stuff. But I think just being a little bit kinder to yourself in those situations, because imposter syndrome is really hard to deal with, especially as a newbie. And you almost feel like a fish out of water sometimes with when everything is so new. So yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me is just ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid um, to work with somebody, work with a mentor in a new role, and just um, ask questions. And
Yeah.
I think it's also important too to work with a company that you feel comfortable asking questions, because I have worked with some companies that asking too many questions is frowned upon. Um, and I think as a newbie, that's not where you want to be. You want to be somewhere where you feel comfortable asking those questions.
Yeah. And what really helped you with the imposter syndrome?
Oh man, I think it's something that I still struggle with today. um, I don't know if it ever goes away, and I honestly I think it's a good thing. I think it's what helps is understanding it. Where does it come from? And to me, it's because there is a gap between where you are now and where you think that you're expected to be. Um, and understanding that all developers, even senior developers, or people that have been with a company for a while, everyone's still learning. Everyone's still asking questions. Everyone's still Googling for answers. And knowing that you're not alone and that you can ask questions is super important for dealing with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice and something for new developers or developers who are learning and so on their early in their journey to recognize, because from the outside, like if you're not in the tech industry yet, it seems like, oh, I have to know everything. I have
Mm-hmm.
to remember how every piece of line of code works. But in reality, it's more of like understanding the fundamentals and being able to like problem solve and get to the solution.
Yeah, and I thought early on that I had to memorize a lot of code, um, how to do a lot of things. But like you said, understanding the fundamentals and then getting the project and working through it step by step is key to figuring out these problems that you're working on. Yeah, it's it's that's the toughest part. You know, what do I need to memorize and what do I not need to
Yeah.
memorize? And really, repetition is key there. Someone once told me that repetition is the mother of skill, and with development, you putting those reps in is going to get you where you need to be.
Yeah. 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 I think that's a skill. Well, another skill is like being able to know what you need to memorize and not need to memorize.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an amazing skill, and I feel like I have a pretty good understanding, and it like frees up so much mental like space because you're
Mm-hmm.
not worried about remembering like very minor things.
Yeah, and over the last 4 years, since I've been developing full time, um, almost every one of my projects is something new. Um, I get a new task that I haven't done before, and you start with the same process. You research it. Okay, how do I do this? How do I iterate over an array? Um, it's it's I don't think that will go away. I think it's how you handle the problem and having the confidence to find the answers.
Yeah, and one thing one thing now that's really great too is a chat gpt.
Oh my
Have
gosh,
it,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I use it today. So I was writing a component today, um, and I was like, I wonder how this is done, especially me learning iOS development.
Yeah,
Um, ChatGPT has been like my best friend. So.
yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the greatest uses, because I dabbled in web development and like playing with React. And when you're learning a new or using like a language that you're not super familiar with, having something like that is like amazing for developers.
It is, yeah. It's super nice, and um, I also use it now for marketing too. It's been great.
Now I want to transition to what's the story behind Mike. What was it, MacroFlex?
hmm Yeah, MacroFlex is me really solving my own itch. I've been wanting to build my own product for years now, and MacroFlex is um, one that I've felt like I've needed. Um, I started a health journey when I had my my oldest son about 7 years ago, and I do a lot of uh, fitness tracking. So like I've got an iPhone, so I have um, the health app on there. I do a lot of macro tracking for nutrition and step counts and sleep tracking. And what I found was there's not one place to see all of these things together and to interact with each other. I have all of these apps that do different things, but none of them can really take all this data and show me where my overall health is. So my idea for MacroFlex is um, being able to compile all of the data for my health into one place so that I can see an overall, because everything fits together from sleep, nutrition, exercise, sunlight exposure. Those things all work together for your overall health. And so MacroFlex is going to combine all of those into one spot. Mm-hmm. And my goal with it as well is to provide insights into your health. Where are you doing good at? Where could you do better at? And to start making those micro adjustments in your health to optimize that.
That's pretty cool. And that's a great tool actually, because I track my health as well, but or I try to at least. Like I have an Apple Watch and I check how my step counts and calorie count and all that. But like the health app that Apple provides isn't that great for tracking like step data and like overall health data. Like it could be more elaborate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to give insights too, like it'd be really nice. Like, hey, did you know if you walked, 8 to 10,000 steps a day, this might be where you trend with how your current nutrition is or something, So yeah.
And you're using iOS and Swift, right, to build it out?
Yeah, so I've been back and forth between using React Native for what I know. React, it seems like it'd be an easy transition there, and using Swift UI. So I've recently landed on using Swift UI for it, and that was because the health kit integration, and the UI. Like I love how easy it is to navigate using Swiftful routing. So and using the health kit in there is really nice.
Yeah. So what's the biggest thing you like so far about like iOS development in general?
I love that everything's built in. From using the different stacks, the H stacks, the V stacks, the Z stacks, and laying everything out is really nice. When you're using like web, even in React Native, you have to add in all of the different CSS to make that happen. But in Swift, like it's all built in. Things like making a circle, those things are so much easier in Swift, or in Swift UI. And then a thing that I didn't like when I was using React Native is the navigation. Not as easy to use, but when I found Swiftful routing, it was a game changer to me because it's so easy to navigate around the app. Super nice.
And what's the one thing that you dislike so far about working with iOS development?
The most challenging part for me right now, and my assumption is, it's still very new to me, but it's the architecture of the app. So I've been following more of the MVVC or MVVM pattern.
Yeah.
And it's very confusing to me right now. Like I understand it, but moving data around or fetching data from an API from like for me, I have a node endpoint that I'm getting data from. It's very different from using it on the web. So I think that's been the hardest part for me so far.
I'm assuming you use VS Code for your web, or do you use something else?
Yeah, VS Code.
Do you miss it compared to Xcode? How do you feel about Xcode?
I do. Yeah, I really love working in VS Code. So yeah, using Xcode's definitely been challenging. Definitely something to get used to. but it also has a lot of cool features too. There's a lot of things in there that I think is very helpful. But there's a big learning curve for it.
And back to MacroFlex, what are your like your initial plans for it?
Initial plans, I want to get it in front of anyone that's wanting to use it for their overall health. So really, right now, my wife and I are testing it out and using it for what we need it for, to make sure that we can do all the things that we've wanted to do in the app. The overall kind of strategy for MacroFlex, though, is that we want to get it in the hands of users to make sure that the mobile app is useful. It's helping them reach their goals. But the overall plan for it is that we want to get this data in the hands of fitness coaches. So, what I've found with working with other fitness coaches is that there's a discrepancy in getting the data from the client and having the coach see that same data. And if we can get the mobile users gathering that data and already getting those analytics and match that up with a fitness coach that can help them optimize their plans, set programs, set goals, that's kind of our overall mission. From what I've seen, there's a lot of fitness coaches use spreadsheets or Notion, or there are a couple apps out there right now, but it allows them to track the programs, track the data. But I've talked to a lot of fitness coaches and a lot of past clients of fitness coaches, and a big problem that I've heard them talk about is that there's missing data on the client side and on the coaching side. So MacroFlex Coach is going to be a way that we can have the coaches see that, make improvements, and then also manage their business as well.
As a developer, I'm guessing it's just you, like you on the project, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you feel about like the other aspects on the business side and like marketing and all that?
To me, it's a lot of fun. It's always been a passion of mine to learn all these different sides of business. It's also a challenge because learning the marketing and doing the development, I don't have enough time in the day.
Yeah.
I'm a father of three young boys, married, taking the kids to soccer practice, working a 9 to 5 job. There's a lot going on. So finding the time to do marketing, developing it, there's a lot to learn, but it's actually a lot of fun. There's a lot to learn about human psychology when it comes to marketing. And my goal, though, is I just want to make something that's useful. For me, I'm passionate about development. I'm passionate about health and fitness, and me matching those things together help with the marketing and help with me wanting to wake up and develop it. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's I've always had like an interest in like business as well, and recently I've been learning more in my free time, but learning like more about marketing and sales, and it's interesting. It's like two different ways of thinking, like coming from the tech side as a developer, and
Mm-hmm.
then looking at it from the marketing and sales sides.
Mm-hmm.
It's like two different approaches to business. And it's quite interesting and fun to learn at the same time.
Yeah, as a developer, you want to jump in and just start building the things, right? Like you want to get your hands dirty and start coding. On the marketing side, you want to validate your idea. You want to make sure that what you're building, people are actually going to want. So there is definitely balance there of figuring out which hat to put on for the day. But yeah, it's been interesting, and something that I'm not great at yet is something that I pushed out for a long time because of I've been wearing the developer hat is client outreach, talking with the fitness coaches and the clients and getting that feedback from them. Something that I've done a lot more of the last 3 or 4 months. But that's because as I'm learning, I'm realizing, okay, I got to start talking to the people that are going to be using it so that I can start collecting the feedback.
Yeah, you have to bring back the skills from the first job where you were calling people every day, right? Like when you were a stock trader.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Having those conversations and really it's about picking people's brain, just similar to what we're doing today, just asking the questions and seeing what their pain is, what they're experiencing so that, can help solve that.
And what advice would you have for a web developer who wants to dabble in iOS development from your experience so far?
Have a project that you're passionate about. I think that's, for me, that's been key in learning any of the development, is having a project that you maybe just something that you find missing on the app store that you want to use. An example for me was my son was playing basketball, and I'm a stats person, so I love to just collect the stats of trends and how things are going and stuff. So I was searching for an app that I could track the stats, and the stats, and I really couldn't find one that I really liked. So I started dabbling with that. Okay, how do I build a layout for this? How do I save data on the device so that next time I come in, it's still there? How do I track the trends? So yeah, having a project that you're wanting to have on your phone will keep you passionate and keep you interested in learning the development side of it.
All right, now for the last question, I'd like to ask something random. And I saw you tweeted recently that you would love to travel the world with your family. So the question is, where would be the first place you would go? Anywhere in the world
Ooh.
right now.
Anywhere in the world. I really want to go to Europe. I want to travel, and I'm a big fan of history. So I would like to go to, gosh, anywhere over there. Trying to think of the one place that I would want to go. There's a lot of history and a lot of culture in places like Germany, Denmark would be really cool. I've always really wanted to go to Switzerland, and I am I like to study centenarians, and there's been um, a lot of research and books on centenarians in Japan.
Yeah.
So I would love to go and visit different cultures and just see what other people are doing. Something I'm very interested in.
Yeah, I would like to do the same. And I think that's the best way to travel, like learning about the culture and then actually
Mm-hmm.
seeing it.
Yeah, I agree. I love culture. I love learning about other people, what they're doing, the food they're eating, the things, just their daily living. It's so interesting to me. So it'd be really cool.
I will appreciate you, Taylor, for coming on the show. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, so Twitter is the best place. Build with Taylor is my Twitter handle. I'm also going to be writing a lot more on taylorcovington.com. I'll be blogging there about my journey, building in public, life in general, finding purpose, health and nutrition. And then if you want to learn more about MacroFlex, it's macroflex.io. And I'll also be writing a lot more content there about nutrition, health, how to stay active, things like that going forward.
Yeah. And is there a launch date yet? We have a launch date for the people to mark the calendars.
So we're hoping for October. It's coming up quick, so that might get pushed out. But that's our big push right now, is to at least have the mobile app on the App Store in October.
Well, you guys be on the lookout then.
Hey,
The listeners.
thank you for having me, Jason. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you guys for tuning into another episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you guys leave a review. Leave a 5-star review, maybe. Hopefully 5-star. Make sure you guys follow and subscribe. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it with the fellow iOS developers so they can enjoy it as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.